Hi, welcome to the Tennessean Newsroom. I'm Michael Cass, here with my colleague Bob Smietana. We're here to talk about Tennessee politics this week. We've got some news this morning. Brad Staats, who was the Republican congressional nominee in the 5th Congressional District a few weeks ago, was arrested yesterday on a domestic assault charge. The police report says that his wife, Bethany, said that Staats had slapped her on the face and that she had a red mark on her left cheek that was consistent with that statement. The report says that Staats said that he had pushed his wife down onto a bed. I talked to Staats very briefly on the phone this morning, and he said that the situation is not what it appears to be, but he wouldn't comment any further. Staats ran against Congressman Jim Cooper earlier this month and lost that race by a pretty wide margin. Also, U.S. Senator Bob Corker is in the news today. He has put forward a bill to get the nation past the so-called fiscal cliff that's coming up at the end of this year. If a deal isn't worked out, Corker says that his legislation would produce $4.5 trillion in fiscal reforms, including more than $1 trillion in new revenue. This will obviously be controversial. Corker said in a TV appearance this morning that he knows his bill can be improved upon, but he's trying to make the point that this is something that Congress needs to get done now, and that it shouldn't be another can that they kick down the political road. So I'm going to turn to Bob now. Bob, you had an interesting story in Sunday's paper about the election results and what they said about the religious right and its influence, whether that's waning or can still be sustained. Can you talk a little bit about what you found?
Yeah, it really is waning, and part of the reason it's waning is the demographics are not in their favor. So if you look at the American public, among senior citizens, about 69% of senior citizens are white Christians. They're either evangelicals, mainline Protestants, or Catholics. But among 30-year-olds, only 25% of the population are white Christians. So you still have a lot of people who are Christians in the country, but you don't have that kind of large, dominant block. It's actually quite a big thing because since really the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock, white Christians have been in charge of the country, and now they're not. And the number of people who are of that group of white Christians who are conservative is a smaller number. So that group is really going from being the cultural majority to a cultural minority. So it's going to provide some challenges. I think some of the folks I talked to who are leaders in the Christian right thought, well, maybe this is a good thing for us because we've been too tied to the Republican Party. We've gotten our talking points from them. A couple of them talked a lot about the senatorial candidate Todd Akin, who talked about abortion, and they really felt like he did a terrible job of explaining their point of view, that they feel like they need to be able to explain to people who don't hold their views why they hold them in a much more compassionate way. They feel like they need some change on immigration. And a little bit of it is the small government, no tax increase rhetoric of the Republican Party and the Bible don't always work together. It may also mean kind of more conflict. Some of the cultural war stuff is not going to go away. People are still going to fight over abortion, but it may mean more legal battles as groups that used to be in charge now aren't in charge anymore. There's going to be more challenges. I think the healthcare reform issue is one of those with the contraceptive care. In the past, the government has deferred to religious groups on a lot of issues, especially when it comes to employment. Now, the government's going to be more likely to say, well, no, you have to do what we say. And that's going to be harder. So you're going to see a lot more challenges.
What about with same-sex marriage? Do you think the tide's clearly moving in one direction on that, or can conservatives still make some headway or push back some of
it's interesting, even
what
among,
they disagree with?
Yeah, even among evangelical Christians, among 30-year-olds, their opposition to same-sex marriage. Their opposition to abortion is actually much higher than their parents, but their opposition to same-sex marriage is lessening. You're seeing some people begin to float the idea that perhaps you need a split between civil marriage and matrimony, the kind of religious sacrament of marriage. So there's a little bit of that. I think Tennessee is kind of in the place where Tennessee is still where white Christians are in the majority, and so they see it really is a sense of losing the home, what they call losing home field advantage. So I think people are starting to think, okay, what do we do next? Do we sort of cut ties with ministers performing civil marriage? And then again, that'd be huge. Almost not everyone, but a lot of people get married in churches. They don't have to go to the justice of the peace. So if they had to do that, it would mean a huge changes. So I think we got a big demographic change, and now a lot of things are going to have to sift out.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about what you found in reporting this story?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Actually, a lot of the folks I talked to after they got an app past the okay, we lost, and kind of dismay, they're sort of like, okay, we lost. Is the world going to come to an end? Some people think it is, but it's really not coming to an end. And we're just going to keep doing our thing. And the one thing that was interesting is I talked to a historian who talked about the Great Awakenings. So we had at least 3 Great Awakenings in the country. So American religious practices kind of waxed and waned. So it kind of went down, went back up, went down, went back up. So there's not I think folks think that, well, even if people aren't same ethnic demographics, their religious practice may still increase in the future. So they're not giving up. But I think there's this real sense that there has to be a mental switch of we were in charge, we're not in charge, and what do we do now?
It'll be interesting to see what the strategic shift is, if any,
to
try to counteract these trends. Well, that's it for today's look at politics here in Tennessee. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.